So what is the dark side of the ring? Chris, walk me through this. What is it? What do you got for
okay,
me?
so this is a series, once again, you mentioned, it's season 3. And much like, behind the music that they used to have on VH1 years ago, there's so many things that happen kind of behind the scenes in wrestling, not just with the different characters and situations. And, there's murders and there's crimes and there's behind the scenes machinations and all these other things that I think people are interested in this show, whether you're a wrestling fan or not. Think about The Last Dance, when we saw kind of the behind the scenes of the Chicago Bulls and this great team they put together. I am not a basketball fan per se, but I loved watching that documentary because it really gave you a sense of what it takes to make a successful team. And that's kind of what Dark Side of the Ring is. It's these behind-the-scene stories that you might not understand just how hard it is to be in the wrestling business, and all these different characters that have kind of been involved, and some of them have these terrible stories, and some of them aren't as terrible, but they're all very, very interesting for sure.
So which one's one that you're proud of bringing to people's attention, or you think?
Well, I think last year, and being a narrator, this started when last year we did 2 episodes that I think were really groundbreaking, monumental, and one was a story on the Chris Benoit tragedy, and how that kind of tied in with the passing of Eddie Guerrero, which kind of took Chris down this really dark road. And I got asked to kind of be one of the talking heads on it, one of the experts, quote unquote, because these are 2 of my best friends.
Yes.
And as a result, they asked me to narrate it. So then I really got into the whole series, because I can talk about it from a fan standpoint and also from an experience level standpoint. But I think the Benoit opened up a lot of eyes to people, both within the business and outside, who really wanted to get involved with this show. And then the other one was dealing with the passing of Owen Hart and the whole tragedy that happened there, which was another tragedy, but in a completely different way. And that's when we were able to connect with Owen's family, his daughter, his son, that had never appeared on camera to talk about this. And here they are now in their early 20s. So I think once we had those 2 shows, you're talking, just incredible journalism to deliver these stories, and very riveting, sad, tragic, but almost brings a little bit of closure after 20-odd years of these things happening. So I think that's kind of what really opened the door to making this such a successful series to this day.
Vice TV's Dark Side of the Ring, again, season 3 debuted last Thursday. The next episode and all episodes are on Thursday nights at 9 Eastern time on Vice TV. And I know this might be crossing streams between different circles of wrestling and certainly different times. Did you see the documentary, the Roddy Piper documentary recently at all? Speaking of docs on the subject,
I haven't seen it yet because I know there's a bunch of that I want to check out. I want to see that one. I want to see the Steve Austin one. So, and once again, very interesting stories about these iconic characters, and you really don't know a lot about their personal lives and what they're like behind the scenes. So I know a lot about Roddy's career because I was there for the last few years of it, but I'm sure it's riveting as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of front and center in the number of texts I got from people of his interview when he was here. I was the last person to interview him.
Wow.
A week before he passed, and it was it was an interview that I'll never forget because it didn't seem like he was all there. To be very honest with you, man. I mean,
well, you know what, Rich, and this is the thing when you're talking, especially those guys, we delve into that this season with Dark Side, talking about the Ultimate Warrior, Dynamite Kid. Like, these are guys, if you're talking about Piper and Savage, all those guys from that era, the 80s was a very tough time in wrestling because these guys, and this is not exaggerated wrestling BS, you're talking about guys that were definitely on the road over 300 days out of the year. Now, not just with that physical toll is taking, the mental toll, being away from a family, being on the road, all the trials and tribulations and pitfalls you can fall into. But just think about putting your body through 300 matches a year and just all, if you're talking about the painkillers, if you're talking about, like, no wonder those guys were drinking so much or taking pills or doing all these drugs because, just the travel alone is enough to wear you down, but then taking all these bumps, as we call them in the business, these falls, I mean, it's just a machine that basically chewed you up and spit you out. And you can see that, like when you mentioned that Roddy wasn't all there, he really wasn't. I mean, you talk to him and he's there, but there's a lot of, not to be crass, but brain cells that were left behind on the road over the years, just by necessity to keep these guys going.
And then the road is tough, man. I mean, like, because again, you gotta. How many days of the road are you on the road a year now, Chris?
Well, now things have changed. I mean, now it's all based around television contracts. So AEW was always created with the idea of just doing one show a week.
Right.
But for years in the WWE, I was doing 4 shows a week every week, 52 weeks a year. So times that, carry the 3, and you're talking over 200, 225, 50 days on the road. And that's the thing, too. This is not like the NBA where you're picked up and dropped off and every travel expense is taken care of. I mean, you get your plane ticket and your itinerary, and that's it. So you go to the airport, you got to go through security, you got to get in the plane, you got to get your bags, you got to get your rent-a-car, you got to drive to the town, you got to do your show, you got to drive to the next town, find a hotel. Hopefully everything isn't sold out. I mean, it's very much a grind, very rigorous in all the stuff you have to go through. So that takes its toll as well.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.